Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Books with Tanisha. This is a really exciting episode for me because I feel like I've been waiting forever to talk about these books and surprised with like a third book that I didn't even know was coming out until recently. And it's something that I've talked about a little bit, like in my summer dumps and other books I've read, are kind of in collections, but I've never really talked specifically about these three books together. And so today is really about honoring this trilogy, which I'll talk about in just a second. But first, I just want to welcome all of you to Talking Books with Tanisha. My name is Tanisha, and I am an educator. I'm an avid reader. I'm an aspiring writer. I am a person who feels that everyone should have access to really great stories, um, should have access to be able to talk about really great stories, should have access to really great libraries, whether they're your public libraries or your home libraries. And having books in your hands is like a gift. And also, I think, a right for everyone to be able to have. And so part of the purpose of this video series is to really promote really strong stories by really great authors and to talk to people who also really appreciate great stories. So I just want to take a little bit of time today to talk with you about my favorite trilogy, um, which used to be that's my favorite like series, beginning and sequel, which is the Dear Martin series. And we call it the Dear Martin series because that was the first book in this series of stories. And I just want to spend a little bit of time introducing them to you or reintroducing them to you. And then I want to encourage you to get them as soon as you can, to find yourself some copies if you haven't already. If you've already read these books, I want to encourage you to read them again back to back. And I've talked about this before about the power of reading these stories back to back, but I'm going to talk about it one more time. So, first of all, one of my favorite authors ever, Nick Stone, is the author of all three of these books. Um, and these books are written kind of like they're written in sequence of each other, but at different time periods. And so I'm going to start with Dear Martin. So I have my copies of my books with me too, because I would like to have like a copy that I've kept near and dear to me. I was introduced to Dear Martin during COVID, actually, during a time where it felt like there wasn't really much known about what was happening. We're in this kind of space of like despair, but also we were in a space of really looking at not only a pandemic that was health pandemic, but also a racial pandemic. And we're watching and observing and witnessing the deaths of many Black people at the hands of police and other people with racist ideas towards specifically Black people taking Black lives. And Dear Martin is the story of Justice McAllister. He is a teenage boy who like basically has everything going for him pretty much on the surface. Like he has kind of made himself accomplished, has escaped some of the horrors of like his childhood upbringing, has strong support systems around him, but is looking for I think just like everyone's looking for success. And one of his best friends and him get caught in a situation where they are both put at the mercy of the police. And part of my desire in sharing these books with you is not to tell you every single thing that happens in the story, because I really want to leave you to be able to read this story yourself. But the beauty of what this story is that Justice's teacher asked him to start writing letters to Dr. Martin Luther King. And in these letters that he's writing him, Justice finds himself confessing, confiding, talking about things that have been happening to him, asking questions, really with a desire to be more like Dr. Martin Luther King, and to follow like his pattern and his behaviors. And I think in the process, Justice learns a lot about himself. It's beautifully written. It is powerful story. It is heartbreaking at times. There are complicated characters. Nick Stone does a beautiful job of introducing this kind of like almost perfect character who becomes a victim pretty much at the beginning of this book, and then goes back and forth between trying to figure out what's the right way. Like which direction am I going in? And he has mistakes that he makes. He also is the victim of some pretty terrible mistakes, and he has some lessons that he learns. But the beauty of Dear Martin is that along the way we get to learn those lessons too. So Dear Martin is how this whole thing starts. Well, in this book, we get a chance to meet other characters, and one of those characters is Quan, who is Manny's cousin, which is Justice's best friend and Dear Martin. We also get a chance to meet Jared, who's another really good friend of Manny. But Jared has some complications and he has like some issues. And that's where we get introduced to Dear Justice. So in Dear Justice, this book is really what happens when Manny's cousin is put into prison, put into jail as a juvenile, and under a charge that he has claimed that he has not done. So he is in jail, and allegedly has not done this crime that he says he's claiming he's innocent. And it's really hard to like prove that might be true. That all the circumstances are not in his favor at all. And what he starts doing is he starts writing letters to Justice. Now, Quan and Justice have some background. They grew up in the same neighborhood. They knew each other before we meet Justice. Meet Quan and Dear Martin. So we have a chance to meet that character there. But this book, I like this because Nick Stone talks about this in the beginning of her book. Like there were so many kids that were like Justice who were like, on the right track, doing the right thing or whatever. Kind of this ideal student in a lot of ways. And she said that there's these two guys she was working with. I reached out to her like, where's our story? Like, good thing for Justice, great for him. He's able to accomplish all this. Some of us have a little bit of a different story. Like, where's our story? And so this story is written for those people who haven't been able to necessarily find the journey or the trail that Justice found, whose lives might have been a little bit hard and have a little bit more difficulties ahead of them. And it gives honor to them. Like she pays honor. It's like a love letter to the ones who maybe don't have the kind of like the yellow brick road in front of them, and maybe that road's a little bit more torn up. And she does such a beautiful job of honoring that story as well. And we get to meet that story through the character of Quan. And so we have a chance to actually see what Kwan's life is like as he is imprisoned. We have a chance to see what it looks like to be on the side of advocating for someone who's been unjustly withheld. We have a chance to see the police attitudes, the racism, the prejudice, the oppression that occurs. But we also have a chance to see the hope and the perseverance and the dedication. And in this book, Quan is writing letters to Justice from jail. And so all of his letters start with Dear Justice. And this was the book that made me cry. When I read this story, it made me cry because it's such a beautiful, powerful story. And way she takes care of her characters is like amazing. I've told her like you have a way of taking care of your characters, making us want to take care of them too. Um, I had a chance to interview Nick Stone a couple months ago about some of these books, and it was really just beautiful to talk with her directly about how much she cares about her stories and her characters. So that's when I decided, okay, I know I just read Dear Martin. Took me a couple of months to find Dear Justice. I had to go back. I had to go back and reread Dear Martin, and I had to go back and read Dear Justice right after. And that was even a more powerful experience. Well, when I was interviewing her a couple of months ago, she mentioned, Dear Manny is coming out. And I did not know that. And I was so excited. I had heard that it was coming out. I didn't realize it was coming out so soon. It came out this month in March, everybody. So if you haven't already gotten your copy of Dear Manny, you have to. So here's the third story. A couple of years has passed now. Some tragic things happened in Dear Martin that have impacted both Quan, that have impacted Justice, and have impacted Jared. Jared is Manny's best friend, who we meet in Dear Martin, and Jared is white. And Jared has a whole journey of his own racial awareness to go through, a lot of white entitlement, a lot of things that he is really like going through and not recognizing he's going through. And he becomes a little bit more aware as we start going into Dear Justice. We start seeing a little bit more awareness around him as we're heading into Dear Manny. Like he's kind of come into his own. Like he definitely is like, growing, but he still has work to do because we always have work to do. So in Dear Manny, it's 2 years later. They are at college. Justice and Jared are now roommates in college, which is amazing. Jared has come a long way. He's going to run for junior class president, and he gets confronted with some of the ways in which his entitlement has caught up with him and how it's been at the deficit of other Black students in his school. But he also is confronted with his kind of his own racism that he was kind of going through the lens of other people. So we have a chance for the first time. Nick Stone takes on the main character of her book is a white boy, a white male, young male, um, who is the center of this story, where Justice is now a character on the side. Manny is no longer alive and there, but he needs someone to talk to. He needs someone to confide, and he needs someone to be able to share all the things that he's going through. And so you know what happens. Justice tells Jared, "What if you write letters to Manny? Because Manny won't judge you. Manny will be there to listen to you. You can tell Manny anything." because Manny's your best friend. And so Jared writes letters to Manny. And there we have Dear Manny. Again, these are books that you're gonna have to read for yourself. And I'm gonna tell you, like I just finished Dear Manny 2 days ago. And I said, okay, y'all, now it's time to go back and to start over again. So I'm reading Dear Martin. I'm going to be then rereading Dear Justice, and I will read Dear Manny all over again in order because the way that she writes the books, they deserve to be put together side by side so you can honor each of the stories and remember all of the emotions that come up for you, the questions that come up for you, the learning that comes up for you. I have yet to read a Nick Stone book that does not make you think, that makes you stop and really reflect on what did I just read, what is happening in this book, and what can I learn from it, and how can I grow. So you're gonna see a video of me like kind of like showing off my little Kendrick Lamar moves with books in my hand. Mostly is to kind of get you excited about the idea that you can like put a little bit of a beat to anything and make it exciting. But mostly I'm hoping you're gonna grab these books for yourself and you're gonna read the stories. I want to thank you for joining me today on Talking Books with Tanisha. If you like what you are seeing, please like and subscribe and share. I'm about to start this new season up, y'all. So this is going to come out and we're going to have more of these following. So please join me. Get the books in the hands. We have a lot of things right now to be really paying attention to and protecting. And one of them is our stories, reflective, representative, diverse stories. They matter and these stories matter. Don't let them be erased. Keep reading, everybody. It matters.